NFL insiders may have just revealed the plan within the Miami Dolphins front office and ownership group heading into the offseason on quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. He was benched this past week for Quinn Ewers, and with the money situation where it is, so much dead cap, so much potential cap savings down the road, the question is, what will Miami do? Well, I think we kind of understand where this thing is heading. Tom Pelissero on the Rich Eisen show, before Miami even played Cincinnati on Sunday, said that he believes Tua has played his final down in Miami. And we also said this on the channel as well, by the way, that we think Tua won't play a snap for the Dolphins ever again, because when you officially make the switch from Tua to Ewers with no injury designation, just a straight-up benching, even though they already were eliminated from playoffs, you could spin it, there's no need to play them. There's no going back to Tua, especially when he's been playing as poorly as he has. And Ian Rapoport said something very similar on Sunday morning prior to the game against Cincinnati, that the expectation is Tua played his final down in Miami. So the options are, how do they move on? They could simply cut him and eat $99 million in dead cap over the next 2 seasons, like the Broncos did with Russell Wilson. Remember, when they did it, it was $84 million. Or they can try to trade him and eat some of that money. That is their preferred option, and maybe the most likely. They could keep him as a highly paid backup, although I'd say that is unlikely. So it's clear. There were always 3 options in this scenario. You can either cut him, let's just say 4 options. You can either cut him prior to June 1st, cut him after June 1st, trade him, or keep him next year as a backup and then cut him in 2027 when the dead cap hit isn't as high. Well, either way you want to spin it, with Ian Rapoport saying that it is more unlikely than not that they will keep him as an expensive backup, it feels like this thing is over. Whether they cut him in the offseason or trade him. No matter when, that seems like it's going to happen. And I think that is the right decision. Because yes, it's going to be a lot of money on Miami's books for Tua to not play for the team. I just think that it makes a lot of sense. Because we've talked about his contract a ton, right? Obviously, you look at just the dead cap numbers, it would make a ton of sense to just ride out 2026 when the dead cap number would go down by $68 million. And you could save a lot more money going into the final 2 years. But I truly do believe the ideal situation is cutting Tua, and I will even go as far as to say they should do it prior to June 1st. Now, yes, you would have less of a higher dead cap hit this year in 2026 if you cut him post June 1st rather than before June 1st, but the future benefits, to me, are just way better. Because let's look at the difference in cutting Tua before June 1st or post June 1st. Well, the dead cap number certainly changes by about $32 million, $99 million in dead cap prior to June 1st, only $67 after June 1st. And you look at the cap savings, you actually go in the negatives by $42.8 million in 2026 compared to only $11 million in 2026. So if your goal was to have more cap space in 2026 and field more of a competitive roster next year, yeah, it would make sense to cut him post June 1st. But look at the difference in 2027. Nothing really changes for 2028, but there is a $32 million difference for your cap flexibility in 2027. Guys, you are not going to be at the level of competing for a Super Bowl in 2027 no matter what. So why would you prioritize flexibility in 2026 and cut them post June 1st rather than prioritizing flexibility in 2027? Like, the cap space in 2027 is way more important than this upcoming offseason. Because as I mentioned, I don't care if they go 12 of 12 on draft picks in April. You're still likely not contending for a Super Bowl next year. So you don't need the flexibility in free agency to sign players. But you will need it in 2027 when you try to add a quarterback, whether it's free agency, draft, or the trade market. So if you are cutting Tua, it makes way more sense to do it now prior to June 1st then try to delay the cap hit and blend it between 2026 and 2027. Just rip the Band-Aid off. And if they do that, you should expect two corresponding moves, in my opinion. That is Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb both being cut. Now, Tyreek Hill is going to be cut regardless because he's not going to be here on a $52 million cap hit, especially with them moving off of Tua. The question is, are they going to do that prior to June 1st and post-June 1st? Well, I think they should move on from both of these veterans with a post-June 1st designation. And you are allowed two of those designations each year. You would save $36 million in cap space if you cut Tyreek Hill post-June 1st. And you save $20.2 million if you cut Bradley Chubb post-June 1st. So even with you adding $42 million in negative cap space, if you cut him prior to June 1st this year, that being Tua, you would get into the positive by making these two moves. You would go from negative 50 to positive by about $2 million. Now, all of these calculations are made on the over-the-cap salary cap calculator tool. So if there's any number difference in incorrect numbers, that's where I got them. I think that is the most ideal outcome. And by the way, you would also save a little bit of cap space in 2027 by about $9 million by getting rid of Bradley Chubb this offseason with a post-June 1st one designation. So, yes, you are getting rid of three big-name veteran players in Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Bradley Chubb. But the amount of cap space that you will create for 2027, a projection, using those calculating tools, about $160.2 million. That would allow you to extend a Devon Achane starting in 2027. It would allow you to keep Aaron Brewer, keep Jordan Brooks starting in 2027. But also have a lot of cap space to upgrade the roster in free agency or the trade market. So doing all of these moves, cutting Tua prior to June 1st, Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, yes, you will be absolutely horrible in 2026. I got a news flash for you. We're going to be bad next year. We might be picking numero uno in the 2027 NFL draft. And that is fine with me. Because the only way to get better with how this roster was constructed is a complete teardown. And I truly believe whoever the new GM is that they hire in 2026 in January should have the complete ability to tear it down. They should be firing Mike McDaniel and bringing in a new head coach. They should cut Tua prior to June 1st. Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb post June 1st. Be awful next year, and then you'll have a top 5 pick at bare minimum in 2027 with $160 million in potential cap space to just completely overhaul the roster. That is the best way to get from where we are now to a contending team in the AFC within the next 3 years. We saw New England do it. We saw Denver do it. Just biting the bullet, taking the dead cap hit, stinking it up in 1 year, and then hopefully making the right draft picks at quarterback, making the right signings in free agency can make you a contending team in the AFC. I think it's abundantly clear how Miami must progress. So what say you? Pick a side. Should Miami cut Tua, assuming they're going to cut him regardless, before or after June 1st? Type B for before or A for after. Now, we obviously have not explored on today's show the other route Miami could go, and that is a trade, which is apparently the preferred option according to Ian Rapoport. Now, it is very difficult to project what the cap hit and cap situation for Miami would be if they trade him because there are multiple avenues that you can go if you deal Tua Tagovailoa away. You can do two things. You could trade Tua and draft capital to a team, and they take on that contract, and you wipe away your cap situation, or you can trade Tua to get a draft pick back, but you are paying, let's say, 70% of the money. Not all, but a decent amount. But you'll get maybe a day 2, day 3 pick and return probably a day 3 selection. And here is the former idea, where you're trading draft capital away to clear yourself in cap hell with Tua Tagovailoa. This was an ESPN trade idea proposed back in October by Seth Walder. It was Miami sending Tua and their second-round picks in this year and 2027 drafts to get a fifth-round pick in return. And you ask, why would you do this? Well, this is the type of trade where Miami would clear their cap situation. Would they still have some dead cap for Tua? Yes, they would. But would it be to the degree that they have currently projected? No. You're dealing away 2 picks in 2 second-round drafts to give you more flexibility right now. Now, I'll be honest with you. Do not expect something like this. I think out of all of the options Miami has, I think this is the least likely option. I think it is more likely Miami keeps him as a backup next year than ultimately trading away multiple second-round picks to get rid of him. Because why would a new GM do that? Why would he take away draft capital from himself to improve the team for the future? If they make a trade involving Tua Tagovailoa, it would be one where they deal him away and pay most of the salary to get a little bit of cap relief and maybe a 6th-round pick or 7th-round pick in return. Rounding out the show here, but it is the holiday season, and if you were lollygagging and procrastinating on a gift, well, you can get a last-minute gift as the Rivalry Collection is on sale right now. T-shirts, hats, polos, jerseys. But it's also the holiday season. Maybe you got some cash for the holidays. Well, go get yourself some gear on sale. Chatsports.com/Dolphins Rivalry. Links in the description and comments of today's show. No matter how Miami ultimately gets rid of Tua Tagovailoa, you need to lower your expectations on Miami in 2026. They are going to be very bad. They are going to be picking inside the top 5 in all likelihood. And with however Miami moves off of Tua, he's going to have a large cap hold on Miami's 2026 books, which means you should be expecting a veteran minimum quarterback or a rookie quarterback contract playing in Miami in 2026. And I think there are 10 different options on display for you. You can go the trade route, trading for Mac Jones, who's on a $2.8 million deal. You can trade for Jameis Winston, who's on a $4 or $5 million deal. Tanner McKee, who's on a rookie contract in Philadelphia. You could sign a Malik Willis or Russell Wilson to a 1-year or 2-year deal where they're getting $2-3 million a season. Or you could draft one in the first round like Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, or Dante Moore, or someone in the mid-round rounds like third round, 4th round, 5th round like Garrett Nussmeier or Drew Aller. The point I'm trying to make is I would not expect the new Dolphins quarterback in 2026, whoever it may be, to be making more than $6 million, which means it's not going to be someone with a high profile. Now, obviously, there's another option out there, which is the current 7th-round rookie, Quinn Ewers. If he displays an ability of improvement in the final 2 weeks against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and New England Patriots, maybe you do go into the offseason with him projected as your QB1 and kind of the tank commander, if you will, in 2026, unless he balls out. And now you have your quarterback of the future. I don't forecast that, but that is certainly an option. Point remains, cut Tua prior to June 1st. Bite the bullet. You're going to suck next year. Deal with it, and then you can make real changes to the roster in 2027 in the draft with a high pick, $150, $160 million in cap space. That is the ideal outcome for Miami. It's going to be at least 2 years until you can compete. Now, you got to make the right moves, but it gives you a glimmer of hope for things to be turned around if you make the right moves with that GM in 2027 and 2028. And if you want more, make sure you hit that sub button because we're talking Dolphins football on the daily.